Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Fan Appreciation Month here on Reaction and Review. Tonight, guys, I'm taking a look at a horror movie from 1979. That movie is Don't Go in the House. Now, I would really love to say that I know anything about this movie outside of the fact that it's a horror movie, it's from 1979, and it's called Don't Go in the House, but I really don't. The only thing I really know about this movie is that it, amongst many other films from the late 70s and early 80s, were outright banned in the UK and labeled as video nasties. Because for whatever reason, back then, the British government insisted on trying to babysit every fucking citizen they had and telling them what they can and cannot watch. That's really all that I know. I know this thing is a video nasty. That's all I have to work off of. And for those of you who are wondering, a couple other movies I've covered in the past were also video nasties, including Cannibal Holocaust and Blood Feast. And since Blood Feast was fucking tame as shit, I don't know if this thing is going to even be controversial or gory enough for me to even care. I honestly don't even know if it's going to be any good. The only way I'm going to find out if it is any good is if I shut up and I push play, and I'm going to do that right now. So, without further ado, it's time to kick back, relax, and check out Don't Go in the House. Wait a minute, wait. His mother just died. He's hearing voices. They're telling him he can do anything he wants. The first thing he asks is if he can play his music loud. Okay, I totally understand, guys, that some people really have to enjoy their music really loud. But isn't there such a thing as, priorities? Like, shouldn't you, take care of the corpse of your dead mother instead of going and playing some rather shitty music incredibly loud? I'm sorry, guys, I just found that a little bit odd. Okay, I kind of have to ask this, because I'm kind of wondering now. So did Donnie or his mother always have that room with all of the chains and straps and shit set up? If so, why? I totally understand that Donnie's mom was fucking bonkers and was really into, torturing her young son, but I'm wondering, why the hell would you have a torture chamber in your house unless you already had this sort of shit planned out? It just doesn't seem to work for me, guys. You know what I mean? Okay, I wasn't expecting him to set her on fire. But now, this raises even more questions. How long has Donnie's mom been dead if he has had the time to build this room and to construct a fucking flamethrower in order to set his victims on fire? I want to know, how long has she been dead? Or, moreover, how long was he planning on, how long before her death was he planning on doing this? Guys, this is really starting to bug the fuck out of me. Well, guys, good news is that Donnie's taste in music has gotten better. This honestly is better. This right here is better than the bullshit he was playing when he found out that his fucking mom died. So, I guess that your taste in music gets better as your mind gets more and more fucked up. It's kind of interesting. You know, guys, I totally understand that it's not normal to be talking this much about the music in a movie, but you guys can hear this bullshit I have to listen to. There's been one good song in this entire goddamn movie. Why the fuck did it have to be disco? I don't give a fuck if this movie was made in the late 70s. By fucking 1979, guys, people had already come out and said disco sucks balls. So why the hell do we have a disco-heavy soundtrack on a horror movie? I kind of thought we'd have something a little bit better for this, something a little bit more fitting, you know what I mean? God, this music is fucking torturous, guys. Okay, that honestly is not exactly the right way to inform a woman that you don't want to dance. It's not exactly normal to go and set her fucking head on fire. I totally understand that he was having a flashback to when he was, fucking abused as a kid, but still, that was kinda fucked up. So, the movie ends with a rather creative and interesting sequel, hook. I don't think they ever actually went through with a sequel, but that was certainly creative. And the closing credits roll over more fucking disco. Yay! I wish I was fucking dead. No, shut up! Burn in the deepest pits, you disco fuckers. Okay. Well, guys, that was Don't Go in the House. Good God, that fucking music. Seeing as how I just commented on music, why don't I just break my normal, protocol? Let's talk about the music. First I want to talk about the, score, what little actually is here in terms of a score. Now, for those of you who are kind of new to my series, I always sort of like to differentiate a film's score from its soundtrack. You see, the score is usually all of the instrumental background music. It is both incidental and instrumental, just for you guys who are thinking I might have corrected myself there, which plays in most movies. It's usually there in order to help set the tone and in order to help set the mood. The soundtrack are proper songs with lyrics and what have you that you might also hear in the background or will sometimes get played up into the foreground, especially if it is a musical. The soundtrack is always up front, the score is usually in back. In fact, that's usually like the best way to sum up anything between soundtrack and score is soundtrack are songs that are kind of sort of brought to the forefront either, through lyrics or through, some kind of like a plot point, and the score is in the background. Now, when you have a horror movie, you want a score that is haunting and is going to help set that haunting mood. And we have that here. We have an awesome score in terms of horror movies. Unfortunately, there really isn't a whole lot of the film scored here. A lot of it is played with disco bullshit in the background, and I've already made abundantly clear numerous times in this series how much I loathe and despise disco. Now, okay, I know some of you are going to say, well, this movie was made in 1979. Disco was really popular in the 1970s. Yeah, the mid-70s. And by the time 1979 had come, people had almost all totally turned on the evil on the evil demon of disco. So to have a movie made in 1979 in certain parts of the world released in 1980, which means that the damn thing came out in late 1979. And to have a soundtrack that is that disco heavy and not have characters constantly comment on how shit that fucking music is just feels kind of wrong. So basically, guys, we have a soundtrack that would have been that would have been incredibly fitting and perfect if the movie were made in 1975, 1976, on a movie released at the very start of the Disco Sucks movement. And believe me, guys, this fucking movie suffers because it continues to rely on disco. In fact, the only song which is part of the soundtrack that isn't, straight up god-awful disco is one rock song. And I did make a comment on it, and the song sounded okay. Now that I'm done whinging about the music, let's talk about the actual important parts of the movie. Let's talk about the writing. The writing here is incredibly solid. Well, I can't really say incredibly solid. It's kind of solid, though. We do have a fascinating story here because we have Donnie, who who was tortured as a child by his incredibly abusive mother. And when she dies, his brain kind of snaps like a frail and brittle twig, and it leads to him stalking and killing women. Basically, it's basically trying to tell a fucking version of Psycho if Norman Bates were a pyromaniac. And if Norman Bates were less fucking likable, but that actually ties more into acting than anything else. Well, it does have to do a little bit with the dialogue, because I'm going to tell you guys right now, Donnie, even, just like whittling it down to his fucking dialogue, Donnie is 100% pure grade batshit. And that, to me, kind of sort of leads to a little bit of an issue, because he has the ultra creepy dialogue, and also the fact that the actor himself looks completely nuts, and the actor reads every single line in the film as if he's completely out of his mind. I don't see why any fucking woman would be willing to climb into his truck for any reason at all. Now, this guy's sort of shows where Psycho shined is that in that movie, Norman Bates came off as just kind of odd. Trusting and likable, or rather trustable and kind of likable, but still a little bit odd. And then you find out later on in the film, you find out way late in Psycho that his fucking mom is dead. And I have no problem spoiling that, because first of all, Psycho is a classic, and Psycho is quite a few decades old. So, spoiler on that if you've been living in a cave and never heard of Psycho. Anyway, however, that though was sort of how Norman worked. Donnie, on the other hand, we basically find out that his mom is dead within the opening five minutes, and before she was dead, he was already fucking nuts. And he gets progressively worse as the film goes on. And mind you, the whole thing, all three of the victims he has collected are all collected because he picked them up in his ratty looking, ugly, shitty truck and drove them to his house. At which point he then put them in a torture chamber that he apparently built in about a day and a half, and then started torching them with what I can only assume is a homemade flame thrower, because I don't think you can just, I do not think you can just go out and buy those. Anyway, and I did mention the torture chamber thing, and I wondered how quickly he had built it. Well, right here is sort of the thing. We find out that the movie starts and Donnie is at work, and then there is a workplace incident where a coworker catches fire and Donnie just sits there and watches. Why? Because Donnie is a fucking pyromaniac. So he then does not show up for work for the rest of the movie. About halfway through, we find out that he has not been to work for a week. And within that week, he has already built the torture chamber, he's already built the fucking flamethrower, and he's torched his first two victims. Actually, I believe he may have torched all three of them at that point, but still, he did all of that within a week. Which either means that he knows how to build a torture room very, very well and very, very quickly, or he built it prior to his mother's death and was planning on using it at some point anyway. No matter which way you slice it, it is incredibly fucked up, and if he built it shortly after his mother's death, then it just feels a little bit odd because the damn thing is built so well. Again, guys, it's just one of those like little things which just sort of bugged me. Now, writing wise, when it comes to all of the other characters, it really is kind of sort of your standard 1970s, late 1970s horror writing, which means that our characters really aren't like incredibly deep, because really you are watching more for a fucking body count than you are anything else. Unfortunately, the film also opts to not actually show us a whole lot of the carnage. Out of Donnie's three victims, we see him kill one. The other two are killed off camera, which to me honestly just kind of sort of feels like a little bit of a waste, but then again, that is just me. So yeah, writing here is good for a late 70s horror movie. However, you also have to understand that a whole lot of late 70s horror flicks were incredibly shallow, and this is coming from someone who genuinely enjoys late 70s horror, like fucking like horror flicks and exploitation films. I genuinely like those, and even I'm telling you that they were rather, shallow. So you kind of have to take that into fucking account when you're going in to watch this thing. The movie is certainly watchable as long as you know what you are getting into. Now, acting. I have already talked about the fact that Donnie's actor he basically was playing him up nuts from the very start of the film. However, that doesn't mean that his acting was good. The acting in this thing is shit, guys. Straight up. There is not a single actor in this movie who turns in any kind of a performance which is going to be seen as memorable or decent. Seriously, guys, it really almost sounds as if the entire cast were just fed their dialogue mere minutes before the camera rolled. So nobody had any clue as to how to sound or what to say. It just they fucking knew what to say, they just didn't know how to say it in order to make the scene work. So almost everything feels stiff, everything feels clunky. There are these long, drawn-out pauses in the, dialogue, which to me actually almost sounds as if they may have been reading off of, cue cards, and those pauses were them waiting for people to switch the fucking cue cards over. It's really weird, guys. The fucking, acting here is terrible. In fact, I would go as far as to say that the acting in this film is absolutely amateurish, and that's really the best I can come up with, is that it really does feel as if they just got a whole bunch of people who had no acting experience at all and just tossed all of them on camera and said, here, just go, do something. And the acting, guys, is honestly the second worst element of this film, immediately behind that fucking disco soundtrack. Okay, I promise I'm not going to bitch about the soundtrack anymore. I swear to God, I'm not going down that fucking road again. Anyway, special effects. This movie actually kind of shines a little bit. I would like to talk about the one victim we see. That kill was done incredibly well, because they had to go and... Okay, apparently I have a text message. Don't worry about that. I'm just going to keep on, rolling here. Anyway, actually, it's either a text or an email. Doesn't matter. I'm just going to keep on pressing on here. Where the fuck was I? Special effects. We have one kill. And in that one kill, they had to go and add flames onto the body. Now, we have a victim who is nude. So they obviously didn't have her in some kind of like a burn suit and then just light her ass on fire. No. They actually had to go and, they essentially had to go and composite the flames on, and it looks really good. I mean, fuck, guys, it looks incredibly good. And also, we also really don't have a whole lot else in terms of practical effects outside of like about three actors who actually have to be on fire. Most of them go for the ultra safe Hollywood backfire, which is just sort of how things work. You basically have a stuntman, and then you just set their fucking back on fire, and then you're all set. And then we had the one actress who had her head set on fire, which looked incredibly good. I honestly am saying, though, that seriously, guys, fire honestly is like one of the easiest things to get fucking right, because it's fire. It either is or isn't fire. The only time that fire sucks is when you are trying to digitally put it in, or when you are when you are trying to composite the flames in and it looks like shit. And I've already stated that this film actually did a rather good job at doing that. Makeup effects here. Now we have makeup effects on 4 people. We have it on Donnie's mom and on Donnie's three victims. And Donnie's mom, as her body is slowly rotting away, instead of it actually now instead of them going and actually having like flesh, maybe, I don't know, like falling off or something, like something actually that would take a little bit of skill if you know what you're doing for makeup. They basically just slather her in darker and darker makeup, and it just, that one looks terrible. And as for Donnie's 3 victims, all 3 of them actually do happen to look like burnt, corpses. If you have ever looked at crime scene photos involving burnt, corpses, that makeup looks fucking spot on. So makeup here is really good until you look at Donnie's mom. So let's just say that much and move on. I have already touched on the soundtrack, and I'm not going there again. Camera work here is really solid. Lighting here is really good, and the sound mix is really good. Ultimately, guys, am I able to recommend Don't Go in the House? Kinda. Allow me to explain. If you can find the thing on Netflix, I believe it is still on I believe this is still on Netflix. By all means, swing over and check it out. If you can find it on another website, like if, say, like someone has it up on YouTube or something, go right ahead and watch it. When it comes to buying it, if you're really into late 70s horror movies, then by fucking all means. Pick it up, because shit, you actually can probably find it incredibly cheap. However, if you don't know if this thing is going to be your, thing, then I would not recommend buying it until you've at least had a chance to watch it, because this one here is one of those movies that is incredibly polarizing. You honestly are either going to like it or you're gonna fucking hate it, okay? And it all really depends on exactly how much 1970s you can take. Myself, I honestly am kind of happy that I have seen it. I'm not totally sure if I would ever go back and watch it a second time, but I am happy to have watched it once. Now, because this is Fan Appreciation Month, Don't Go in the House came off the Amazon wishlist. The person who sent it in was Robert, and Robert, as always, has asked that I not actually give out his YouTube channel, and that is totally fine. Robert, thank you, because I have always wondered about this one, because I for years have always been fascinated about Britain's list of fucking video nasties, and this one I always sort of looked at and went, that sounds kind of cool. And it wound up being okay. I mean, it wasn't great, but I honestly, dude, would not have known that if you hadn't have taken the time and sent in a copy. And for that, I thank you. Once more, guys, yes, Robert sent it in, and Robert has asked that I not give out his YouTube channel. But still, Robert, I thank you. The movie actually was pretty good. Well, guys, wow. I honestly, guys, am kind of sort of in the mood for a little bit more 1970s cheese. I'm gonna go watch my Blu-ray of I Spit on Your Grave. That is sounding really good right now. So anyway, guys, with that, we come to the close of another reaction and review. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, take care, and I will see you all in the near future. Peace.